Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of TileTV. My name's Kate Korber. I'm a trainer with NTCA. Today, we're going to talk about handmade tile. Got a couple of different options. You've got a handmade Zalige tile. We've got a nice little fired clay body tile. Very pretty. Why do people choose handmade tile? Limitless options. A lot of different colors, raised relief, a lot of different patterns. But because handmade tile is just that, handmade, it can definitely present some challenges to the installer. So let's talk about that just a little bit. This nice little handmade Zalige tile. So it does not meet ANSI 137.1. What's ANSI 137.1? American National Standards Institute written specifications for different aspects of tile. This particular one, 137.1, is a specification for manufacturing tile. Well, what does that mean to me? Why does that matter? If a tile meets ANSI 137.1, basically what it means is ANSI has set forth guidelines for that tile to conform to. So when you're working with tiles that meet that 137.1, you can have a certain expectation of the tiles being minimal size variation, minimal facial warpage. In other words, more quality-based tile. Handmade tile definitely does not meet 137.1, but that's what attracts people to it. All the different sizes, thickness, shade variation, all the things that I just mentioned are very attractive to some people. But as an installer, there's some things that you can do and that you should do before you install a handmade tile for your customer. You want to sit down with them and do what we call a mock-up. Mock-up should be done for any aspect of tile installation, but in this case, handmade tile, it's very important to do a mock-up with your customer. What's a mock-up? Just what I've got right here. A few tiles set out for you and your customer to look at together. Now you might want a little bit bigger area than this. This is just 9 tiles. But this is basically a mock-up that you're going to sit down with your customer and make sure that the right tile showed up on the job and that's what they like, and then you have several tiles drawn from several boxes so they can see all the differences in those tiles and that they're happy with that, what they've chosen on a larger scale. So the other thing that you're going to do is you're going to make sure that any patterns are agreed upon, grout joint spacing agreed upon, and any grout colors agreed upon. Those are very, very important things. You don't want to wait for your customer to come home from work and find out that your definition of a pinwheel pattern wasn't their definition of a pinwheel pattern. So that's very important. Now, one thing I do want you to note about this Zalige tile, this manufacturer doesn't really recommend grout joints for this product. That seems kind of counterproductive, right? Because we think we should have grout joints in our tile installations, but this manufacturer does not recommend grout joints. They want a very tight joint. So that's worth noting. This is a manufacturer recommendation. The other thing with Zalige tiles, an actual handmade Zalige tile, is this manufacturer recommends soaking this tile prior to installation. Got one here. You can definitely see that this is a very rough surface, very pasty, has a very rugged edge. When the manufacturer tells you to soak the tile, this is a super porous tile. If you didn't follow that recommendation and you didn't soak this tile, there's a very real possibility that this tile, because it's so porous, will wick the moisture from your thin set prematurely, and you could have a bond loss and your tiles might actually fall off or come loose from the installation. So following the manufacturer's recommendation is very important, especially on handmade tile. I've got a few set aside here. As you're working out of several boxes with any tile installation, but especially with handmade tile, you might come across a couple of tiles, like I came across, with such a significant size variation that I couldn't even use them in my field tile. So I set them aside. They were very, very small compared to the other tiles. I had another couple that, as I found as I'm going through the box, they were broken. The corners are broken off. Even though this is a rough tile, you don't want to set a tile on purpose that has a chipped corner. This corner is missing completely. So we set these aside and we can use them later for cuts. Another important aspect of Zalige tile, this cutaway shows it really well. As you're grouting, typically, you've got your grout float and you're pushing your grout into your grout joints. But this particular tile is back beveled. So it has a big cavity behind this very small, almost non-existent grout joint. You have this big cavity. So that's something to be very aware of as you're grouting. You really need to pack those joints. So if you were just to kind of skim across with a coat of grout, you would quickly find that your grout would settle into these joints. You would wind up with maybe cracked grout, definitely settled, and possibly pinholes, but altogether just an unattractive grout job. So something to note, another aspect, another challenge of those handmade tiles. This little fired clay tile, has a really pretty pattern. So another thing that this manufacturer doesn't necessarily recommend a grout joint size. But they do say that this tile can be used on an exterior installation. So that's important to know, because maybe this one might not be suitable for exterior. Beyond exterior, is it suitable for a swimming pool? Don't know. That's something that you might want to reach out to the manufacturer and find out. Also, want to ask this manufacturer, should I seal this tile? Should I seal it before I install it? After I install it? Should it be sealed at all? Right? So very important questions to ask. You can never ask too many questions. It's your reputation on the line and your checkbook on the line if your installation doesn't turn out as your customer was hoping that it would. So just a quick recap with your handmade tile. Know that they're supposed to have size variation. They may or may not have grout joint spacing. They definitely are going to have a lot of shade variation. They can have thickness variation. They can have surface defects, flaws. All these things are inherent in handmade tile. That's why people choose them. Do that mock-up with your customer. Make sure that you're on the same page in all aspects of that installation. Super important. And finally, if you have any questions at all, always reach out to the manufacturer for what they recommend for their products. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Tile TV. I hope you'll join us again for another episode. Don't know what that's going to be, but anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.